The Counsellor is a 2013 British-American thriller film directed by Ridley Scott, from the original film screenplay by Cormac McCarthy. The film stars Michael Fassbender as the eponymous Counsellor, who gets in over his head in a drug deal around the troubled Juarez, Mexico/Texas border as well as Cameron Diaz, Javier Bardem, Penélope Cruz and Brad Pitt. The film deals with themes of greed, death, the primal instincts of humans and their consequences. The Counsellor was chosen as the closing film at the 2013 Morelia Film Festival and also played the Cork Film Festival. The London premiere was held on October 3, 2013 in Leicester Square. The New York City premiere was held on October 9, 2013. The film has received mixed reviews from critics and was theatrically released on October 25, 2013. Plot: the story begins with a man, known only as the Counsellor, and his girlfriend Laura lying in bed and speaking to one another in an increasingly suggestive and erotic manner. The Counsellor then performs oral sex on Laura. Meanwhile, somewhere in Mexico, cocaine is being packaged in barrels and concealed in a sewage truck. The truck is driven across the border and stored at a sewage treatment plant. The Counsellor goes to Amsterdam on what he claims is a business trip, but is actually meeting with a diamond dealer in order to purchase an engagement ring for Laura. Back in the United States, the Counsellor proposes to Laura, and she accepts. He attends a party at a house owned by Rainer and his girlfriend Malkina. The Counsellor and Rainer have a lengthy discussion, during which Rainer claims that the Counsellor is not capitalizing on his position of power as much as he could be. The Counsellor meets with Westray, a business associate, to express interest in a drug deal with a 4,000% return rate. Westray warns the Counsellor about becoming involved in such a deal, saying that Mexican cartels are merciless, particularly to lawyers. The Counsellor visits one of his clients, a prison inmate named Ruth who is on trial for murder. Ruth's son is a biker and a valued cartel member known as the Green Hornet, recently arrested for speeding. The Counsellor agrees to bail him out of jail. Malkina employs the wire man to steal the drugs. He does this by decapitating the biker with a wire stretched across the highway. After collecting the component that will allow the sewage truck to start, the wire man drives to the sewage treatment plant, where he steals the truck containing the cocaine. Learning of this incident, Westray meets with the Counsellor to notify him that the Green Hornet is dead and that the cocaine has been stolen, bleakly intoning the Counsellor's culpability. Simultaneously, both Ruth and the cartel link the Counsellor to the death of the biker and the theft of the drugs. The cartel has learned that he bailed out the Green Hornet, which appears as suspect timing and fully blameworthy for the putative purposes of the cartel. In Texas, two cartel members pretending to be police officers pull over the wire man and his accomplice. A shootout ensues when the accomplice shoots and kills one of the imposter police officers, and wounds the other. The wounded cartel member manages to kill the accomplice in the wire man, accidentally shooting the sewage truck and purposely gunning down a passing-by driver. Rainer is accidentally killed by cartel members while attempting to capture him, and Laura is simultaneously kidnapped. In a last-ditch effort, the Counsellor contacts Jeff, a high-ranking cartel member, for information on the whereabouts of Laura, Rainer, and Westray, or suggestions on what to do next. Jeff advises the Counsellor to live with the choices he has made. After the truck is fixed and the wounded cartel member is cared for, he goes to the meeting location where the buyer gets his cocaine. The Counsellor goes back to Mexico, hoping to find Laura. A package is slipped under the door of his hotel room. He opens it and finds a DVD with Hola written on it. The Counsellor breaks down completely, heavily implying that the disc contains an execution video of Laura from the cartel. Laura's decapitated body is dumped at a landfill. Meanwhile, Malkina's failed effort to steal the drugs means that she is out of the money she wants. She tracks Westray to London, hiring a woman to seduce him and steal his bank codes. She has Westray killed to get his computer in order to access the account and its contents. Malkina then meets her banker at a restaurant to explain how she wants her accounts to be handled, and the two continue to have a business-as-usual luncheon as the film ends. Literary themes: Writing for Serpentbox on October 28, 2013, Vincent Carroll identified the Spanish poet Antonio Machado as the source of the poetic verses used by the cartel kingpin, the Chief, when speaking to the Counsellor. In the second half of the film, the Chief recites directly from the poem to the Counsellor, Oe caminante, no hay camino. Se hay camino al anda, which translates in its original context as, wanderer, there is no road, the road is made by walking. This passage is taken from Machado's poem Campus de Castilla, with Machado's reflections upon the prospects of his own life after learning of his wife being diagnosed with terminal tuberculosis from which he would die within a year. The Chief uses the poem to inform the Counsellor of his own impending demise. In the film, the Chief concludes by telling the Counsellor, you are the world you have created. And when you cease to exist, that world you have created will also cease to exist. Cast, Michael Fassbender as the Counsellor, a lawyer who delves into the dark world of trafficking through his business partner Raina. He was married previously and is now engaged to Laura. His name is never revealed. Raina would proposition the Counsellor 2 years prior to get involved in the drug business, but he originally said no. This marks Fassbender's second collaboration with Ridley Scott, following Prometheus. Cameron Diaz as Malkina. The name Malkina comes from Grimalkin, meaning an evil-looking female cat. She is a pathological liar and a sociopath, an immigrant who is now living the high life after escaping a sordid past as an exotic dancer. Although Malkina does come from a background of little means, she is smart and calculating. She hides her psychological scars through her appearance, wearing large jewelry and extravagant clothes to draw attention to herself. Malkina has a cheetah print tattoo and owns 2 pet cheetahs. She is the girlfriend of Raina, and together they are a powerful couple in the underground drug world. She is always aware of what is going on around her, and in control at all times. Angelina Jolie was attached to the role before Diaz was cast. Javier Bardem as Raina, a charismatic entrepreneur by day and an underground drug kingpin by night. Raina is the boyfriend of Malkina and they live an extravagant life together. His relationship with Malkina is volatile, yet they're similar in nature. Raina knows he is not the smartest of men and deep down fears this will eventually lead to his demise. He likes to live dangerously and carefree. Jeremy Renner and Bradley Cooper were in the running before Bardem was cast. Bardem previously appeared in the film adaptation of McCarthy's No Country for Old Men. Penélope Cruz as Laura, a Norwegian generally positive, religious woman who values tradition. She is in a long-distance relationship with the Counsellor and they soon become engaged. She senses that she may not know what the Counsellor does while she is away, yet does not let this get in the way of their relationship. Her failure to see the evil in those around her could cost her everything. Her real-life husband Javier Bardem also appears in the film, marking their first film together since Vicky Cristina Barcelona. Cruz previously appeared in the film adaptation of McCarthy's All the Pretty Horses. Natalie Portman was attached to the role before Cruz was cast. Brad Pitt is Westray, a womanizing, charismatic middleman and a friend of Raina's who meets with the Counsellor to develop the deal. Westray understands the drug world better than Raina, but his vices for women and alcohol could prove to be a fatal flaw. This marks Pitt's second collaboration with Ridley Scott following Thelma and Louise. It also marks Pitt's third collaboration with co-star Michael Fassbender, following Inglourious Basterds in 12 Years a Slave. Rosie Perez as Ruth, a prison convict. Through court appointment she is represented by the Counsellor for murder charges. Richard Cabral as the young man the Green Hornet. Ruth's son and a dangerous, high-ranking member of the cartel with a target on his back. Natalie Dormer as the Blonde, a young woman hired by Malkina to help her carry out her plans by seducing Westray. A sex scene that was not included in the film, with her wearing a pair of garter belts, appears in a trailer video. A Permil Dgar Ramirez as the priest, whom Malkina goes to speak with. Bruno Ganz as the diamond dealer, who sells Laura's engagement ring to the Counsellor. Ruba Copyright N. Blades as Chief, a senior member of the cartel. Blades previously appeared in McCarthy's All the Pretty Horses. Garan Viaduct NJIA as Michael, a banker friend of Malkina's she meets with to discuss her future plans. Toby Kebbell as Tony, an old client of the Counsellor's. Emma Rigby as Tony's girlfriend. John Leguizamo as Randy, a cartel member in Chicago from Colombia. Dean Norris as the buyer, a man who buys drugs from Randy in Chicago. Donna Eyre as the chauffeur. Fernando Cayo as Abogado Hernandez, a lawyer the Counsellor goes to see for help. Sam Spall as Jaime the wireman, a criminal hired by Malkina. Richard Brake as the wireman's accomplice. Alex Hefner as highway patrolman. Carlos Julio Molina as Jose, a workman for the cartel in Chicago. Thulaba Topic as Sedan Man. Production, pre-production. On January 18, 2012, it was reported that novelist Cormac McCarthy has sold his first spec script, The Counsellor, to Nick Ichsler, Paula May Schwartz, and Steve Schwartz, who had previously produced the film adaptation of McCarthy's novel The Road. On January 31, it was reported that Ridley Scott was currently considering several directorial projects, but that there was a strong possibility that The Counsellor would be his next film and his follow-up to Prometheus. On February 9, it was confirmed that Scott would direct. Filming, principal photography began on July 27, 2012 in London. The film was also shot in Spain and the United States. On August 20, 2012, Scott halted production of the film due to his brother Tony's death. He cancelled that week's shoot in order to travel to Los Angeles to be with his brother's family. Scott returned to London to resume production on September 3. The film was dedicated to the memory of Tony Scott, who had taken his own life during production, and Matthew Baker, an assistant director on the film who has since died. The first teaser trailer was released June 25, 2013. Design. Costume designer Janty Yates collaborated with Giorgio Armani on the film as a part of a new partnership between Armani and 20th Century Fox that also extends into retail and digital initiatives. Armani was enlisted to create the wardrobes for the characters portrayed by Michael Fassbender and Penélope Cruz. In addition to Armani, designer Paula Thomas also contributed to the film's wardrobe by dressing Cameron Diaz's character, Malkina, with roughly 15 different outfits. It wasn't until I read the script that I realized why Scott called upon me, said Thomas. Cameron's character has a lot of elements of a Thomas Wilder woman. She's bold, edgy, modern. She a unregistered trademark S about wanting to be seen, as opposed to blending into the background. For Javier Bardem's character, Yates applied a widely colorful wardrobe that was mostly made up of pieces of Versace. As for Bardem's hair, the idea was the actor's own and inspired by film producer Brian Grazer's hairdo. Music. The film score to The Counsellor was composed by Daniel Pemberton. Pemberton recorded the score with a full orchestra at Abbey Road Studios in addition to integrating home-recorded guitar noises and textures. Ridley responds really well to interesting and unusual sounds, explained Pemberton on the composer-director relationship. So as a composer who likes making unusual sounds, Fata unregistered trademark S exciting. It was daunting but he was great to work with and up for experimenting. He made the process a lot less scary than it should have been. A soundtrack album was released digitally on October 22 and in physical forms on November 11, 2013 by Milan Records. Reception. Box office. Preliminary reports had The Counsellor tracking for a $8.6 $13 million debut in North America. The film opened to $3.2 million in 3,336 locations on Friday and opened at number 4 in the box office with just a cumulative $7,842,930 over the weekend. Critical response. The film currently holds a 35% approval rating on review aggregate website Rotten Tomatoes, based on 190 reviews, with an average score of 4.9/10. The consensus reads, The Counsellor raises expectations with its talented cast and creative crew then subverts them with a wordy and clumsy suspense thriller that's mercilessly short on suspense or thrills. On Metacritic, which assigns a normalized rating out of 100 based on reviews from critics. The film has a score of 48 based on 42 reviews, considered to be mixed or average reviews. It received a very negative grade of a D from market research firm Cinema Score. Todd McCarthy of The Hollywood Reporter gave the film a negative review, calling it not a very likable or gratifying film, adding that one is left with a very bleak ending and an only slightly less depressing sense of the waste of a lot of fine talent both behind and in front of the camera. Noted critic Mark Kermode listed it as number 2 on his 10 worst films of 2013. The Los Angeles Times' Kenneth Turan stated, "As cold, precise and soulless as the diamonds that figure briefly in its plot, The Counsellor is an extremely unpleasant piece of business." Peter DeBruge of Variety criticized Cormac McCarthy's script, saying that his first original script is nearly all dialogue, but it's a lousy story, ineptly constructed and rendered far too difficult to follow. Conversely, Richard Roper of the Chicago Sun-Times gave the film 4 stars out of 4, saying director Ridley Scott and screenwriter Cormac McCarthy have fashioned a sexy, sometimes shockingly violent, literate and richly textured the tale of the Shakespearean consequences of one unregistered trademark's irrevocable act of avarice, and called it a bloody great time. In addition, Manila Dargis of the New York Times gave the film a rave review, stating that Mr. McCarthy appears to have never read a screenwriting manual in his life. That's a compliment. Danny Lee of the BBC film review programme Film 2013 praised the film, saying that the real star is the script. What this film really is a Cormac McCarthy audiobook with visuals by Ridley Scott. It's black as night, engrossing and masterful. He also acclaimed the performances, particularly Diaz's, and said, with regard to the negative reviews, movie history is littered with films that we all sneered at and we all laughed at and we all thought were terrible and the critics hated them and no one went to see them, and then 40 years later they fetch up on programs like this with everyone saying, what a masterpiece. Scott Founders, chief film critic for Variety, wrote a defense of the film titled, Why the Counsellor is one of Ridley Scott's best films, in which he compared it to John Boorman's Point Blank and the screenplay to the work of David Mamet, Harold Pinter, and Quentin Tarantino. Founders writes, the film is bold and thrilling in ways that mainstream American movies rarely are, and its rejection suggests what little appetite there is for real daring at the multiplex nowadays. Awards, references. External links, official website, The Counsellor at the Internet Movie Database, The Counsellor at Rotten Tomatoes, The Counsellor at Box Office Mojo, The Counsellor, trailer. Natalie Dormer working in a lingerie shop and wearing sexy stockings on YouTube.